Welcome to Somewhere in October. I'm Alex. Today we're going to talk about the movie Seven. I finally saw it for the first time. They were showing it in theaters, so I said, I think this movie deserves it. Because the only thing I knew about this movie going in was it was about crime. I knew that Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman were in it. And I knew that David Fincher made it, and that's a big deal because he makes masterpieces. To my knowledge, I haven't watched other of his movies. I may have watched them and not know they're his, so that's something that we'll find out. But after watching this, I obviously want to watch all his movies. I have like 5 pages of notes, so how these work is I just go through kind of a recap my thought process. I do want to say, I know there are details in this that I missed. This movie was so methodically detailed that if you spotted something cool or you know something cool, let me know in the comments. I love when you guys do that, especially for this movie, okay? So there was a little opening scene before we really got into the movie where the Cineplex guy was talking about David Fincher and said how there are some people who work with him who would never work with him again because he wanted to get the perfect shot. Listen, I know people can be hard asses and perfectionists sometimes drain me because I am not one myself, but it was worth it. I have never seen a movie so beautifully made in my life. It's one of the top, for sure. I don't even know what to compare it to. In my Letterboxd review, which I honestly mean, if they had no dialogue, shot this as a silent film, and just had all those visuals, you would still get a beautifully haunting story from it. Oh, and like some of the shots we'll talk about, these little details, just the way he kept things in, the way he made it feel more real life. It was perfect. It was perfect. Let's get into it. I had to write my notes in the dark of the theater because often I do it at home, but I really need to do it. So we're going to try to go through them. So one thing, the intro credits, I mean, that alone, I was like, okay, this is going to be a movie. When those intro credits went in, crazy. We get introduced to Brad Pitt's character, Mills, and honestly, I thought there was going to be something to that. Like, why did he get reassigned? Why did he want to go there? I really thought there was going to be something more to that. I thought it was going to tie to the whole crime of it all, but not really, but you'll see. So we get to the first kill, and there's a man lying in a bowl of spaghetti. He is obese, and right away, connecting the title 7 to this type of kill, I was like, okay, this is going to be the 7 deadly sins, which is haunting enough in itself. But what I enjoyed, and listen, when I'm talking about this movie, because it is true crime, I'm talking about what I enjoyed in a storytelling sense, not in a real life humanity sense, because it is really dark, it is really tragic, and this movie is not just story, okay? A lot of movies, and there's no harm to those, but I love when a movie can tell a good story. But there's also movies that are art. This movie is art. So we have this first kill, it's clearly gluttony, but it's not really revealed to everybody yet, so I'm wondering where this is going to go. So Morgan Freeman is Detective Somerset. I believe that's how you pronounce it. If I call him Morgan Freeman, you know who I'm talking about. His name is also William. That might be my notes. Bear with me, bear with me. So he is on the brink of retirement. He is just tired of his life he's living. He's dedicated a lot. He finds it draining. We really get into those conversations of kind of darkness, I would say, around being a detective. There's monotonous, there's not always justice, and that really comes throughout the movie, which I do enjoy. I will say I didn't love Brad Pitt's character for a while. I understand he was meant to be the way he is. There wasn't really any development, I'll say, between who the characters are. Like, they didn't grow over time per se, but we got to know them better. There was a lot of comedic relief, a lot with him and just how he was acting, you know, the silent times. But the first kill, the doctor was like, he's dead. Or the forensic, whoever it was, they were like, yeah, he's dead. And they were like, yeah, thanks, doctor. So I love that. And it was actually a really morbid first way to go. He wasn't smothered in spaghetti. He was forcefully, with a gun to his head, forced to eat. And then he kicked him in the stomach, and I guess it ruptured, and that's what killed him. Just miserable. Honestly, miserable, disgusting, horrid. But at this point, they don't know there's a connection. So Morgan Freeman is like, I don't want to be on this case. I think this is going to be bigger than what it is. I only have like 6 days left. Makes no sense, because either I have to stay with it until it's solved, which could never happen, or I leave and have that haunting me. He just didn't want a part of it. So he was like, I'm going to pull out now. But I'm already screaming for him to get involved. I'm like, you need to get involved. We all know you're going to get involved right now. So then we see Mills at scene 2. We still don't know if these are connected at this point, but us as an audience kind of understand. And greed is clearly written on the floor. Okay, greed is written in blood. There is a picture of the man's wife, and she has like almost glasses over her eyes with blood. Very interesting. First, I thought it was her that was killed, and she was killed for seeing something, but then I realized it was her husband. While this is happening, we get Morgan Freeman going to the library. He's learning, he's reading. The other cops are playing poker, really setting up who Morgan Freeman characters is. Like, he's a deep thinker. He sees life differently, kind of trying to put that spin on him. Again, we're going to come to that apathy conversation, which I really like. It kind of brings everything back to earth. But I love that library scene. They had the music on. It was just beautiful. And what I liked about this movie were there were monotonous moments. The pacing never felt slow. In these really quiet, down moments, there didn't need to be a lot of dialogue, but we learned a lot. Like the scene when Mills comes into the office and him and Morgan have to share it, and they just sit there until the phone rings, and it's so much awkward silence, but the way that they're like fidgeting or working and how they make eye contact with each other when the phone rings, how they're acting, you really just start to see who they are as people, which I thought was just so amazing for a movie to do. Because sometimes it feels like filler. Sometimes people pack it with dialogue and tell you what to feel, what to notice, but this just shows you. It's like, here, you need to sit in this moment. Okay, you're still sitting here, time to observe. I love that. So they look at the scene too, and there was pounds of flesh, a letter, and you can see that he had to actually cut off a pound of his flesh in order to survive. He did not survive. It was very gruesome. And we find out that note left was probably by the killer saying, the wife's seen something. So now we're starting to realize that he, the killer, wants the detectives to follow him, wants him to figure out his puzzle. A lot of serial killers are like that. The Zodiac Killer famously. They're creating this game, this mystery, and they're focused on who they want to play in the mystery. They don't care who gets harmed in the way. So then they go to the wife, and they're like, can you see anything in these pictures? And I mean, this is just so sad and depressing because she has to look at horrible pictures of her husband, and I know they have post-it notes over the body, which, I don't know, it felt comical to me because that's not blocking anything. You know, there's blood everywhere. It looks horrendous. You can get the gist of what's going on. She notices a painting, and she says, this is upside down. So I wasn't sure if the painting was going to be like a cross upside down, because there was kind of like a cross imagery in it, even though I think it was like a city or abstract or something. They're looking through it. This is the one part in the story where I was like, could they really figure that out? But I'm gonna let it slide. He starts dusting the wall where the picture was hanging, and he finds thumbprints or fingerprints, but these fingerprints spell help me. So when I saw this, my detective hat is on. I love a good mystery because I'm going to try to solve it. I didn't think it was the killer saying, help me, like, find me, you need to discover me and stop me. He's working up to the 7 deadly sins. He has an end game. It's not like he's killing and killing impulsively and can't stop. He has a plan, so why would he want anyone to stop him? So I was like, okay, this is definitely another victim. And then I was worried that it was going to be a trap. And Morgan also figured out the gluttony by, they found plastic pieces, it was in the floor, he moved the fridge. Like, a lot of these little puzzle things are happening. But they go to this third suspect's house. This discovery was rotten. I don't even know another word for it. All those air fresheners hung up on the ceiling. I didn't put it together. I was like, is this a decoration choice? Like, what's going on? But clearly it was because he had kept this guy alive for a year and was like just slowly killing him from the inside out, chopped off his hand to write the thing, called him a sloth. That was the point. When they checked on him, and when the cop was like, you deserve this, or whatever he said, and that man was alive, shocked, gobsmacked, absolutely shocked. And I like that they said when they realized he had been bound for a year that the worst thing about this killer was he's patient. He's not rushing, he's not making mistakes, he's taking his sweet time, which is obviously going to make him harder to catch and probably going to make everything a lot more gruesome. I really like the connection where they were learning about the 7 deadly sins, about all this kind of thing to try to figure out who they're dealing with or what their next move might be. And then they think the killer must be consuming this as well. So they do something more under the table. So like if this was in court, it wouldn't be allowed. But they go through library records and see what people are taking out. They find this guy, they go to his apartment. They're like, okay, he's a suspect. Man, I love the fact that when he was coming down the hallway, he just shot. Like, there was no questioning. We didn't really get to see his face. And then we have this chase scene. This chase scene was a masterpiece. I was obsessed with every moment of this. I was in awe at every moment. When we get to the truck, I think it's like a garbage truck, I wasn't expecting him to come up from above. So then he beats Mills in the face because Mills is chasing him. I mean, my man Morgan Freeman, he's an older detective. He's ready for retirement. He's not running like that, even though he does put in a good hustle. But they get separated. Right before he holds the gun to Mills' head, which obviously we need to talk about, there is a moment where we see the killer's silhouette in a puddle. Oh my God. Oh my God, that shot alone, like I just want that still. I want to print it out and I want to put it up there. Like that still alone was amazing. And we haven't really seen his face yet. Like I didn't see that, I didn't recognize it. And he has the gun to his head, but he doesn't kill him. And it just goes to make everything more disturbing. Like he's not just going to kill people. I mean, it sounds kind of weird saying that. He's not going to kill people for the sake of killing people. He's killing people that align with whatever he's thinking or whatever his plan is. So after they lose him, Mills obviously wants to go into the apartment. And this is where we get the realism of what you need a warrant for. And I actually really like that this is in there because if you consume true crime at all, you will know how many people who commit murder get away with it or can never fairly be trialed because of police misconduct. And it's not even always from people being like nefarious. It's sometimes just not following the protocol. It feels like just a to-do list you need to check off, like a formality that doesn't really matter, but it does matter. Because just because you're chasing someone, just because you're trying to stop them, you also need to serve them justice. He's a suspect. You can't just shoot him because you have a hunch, because you have a good feeling. You cannot just search his home, because if you do search his home and you find something, it won't be able to be used in court, okay? And oh, it frustrated me so much. And then Mills kicks the door in. I was like, dude, don't do this. And they pay someone to lie and give them like a reason to go in there, which is still a shady practice. But in terms of the movie, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then they also realized that he was actually the photographer. So before this, Mills was kind of heated and a photographer got to the scene really quickly and was trying to take pictures, and Mills kind of freaked out. And he was like, how did he get here so quick? And they said there was police informants, which does come back around. But also maybe he was there so quick because he was literally waiting for them to find it. And honestly, this is where I thought the wrath was going to come in. I thought that was a moment of wrath, and then he was going to go after Mills at some point for that sin. They're going through this apartment, and it's literally insane. They get a clue on who the next victim will be because there's a photo on like a fourth pedestal. This guy is documenting everything. And we always have this argument throughout the movie if it's insanity or if it's just somebody who thinks differently. I think it is a good point that labeling people insane, labeling people crazy, labeling people out of their mind make it easier to accept things than to think that some people are just evil and are driven by whatever they choose to believe in, whatever they've learned. It's not always insanity. I mean, it can always not start as insanity and turn into it, but it's not always insanity. And I really do like that commentary because Mills is so quick to just say, everybody who commits these things are crazy. They're whack. They're nuts. I think that does come back around to bite him because he has a moment in the end where I don't think that's insanity. Anyway, well, that's a conversation, but So then we hear a phone ring in the apartment. I thought it was going to be a trap, like a bomb was going to go off or something, but he was just telling the detectives that he admires them, and you can see this is a twisted relationship. And this is when I started to get worried because Tracy had called the detectives of Somerset to talk, and I had a feeling she was going to get involved because if he's admiring them now, he has a face, he has a name, he knows who he's playing this game for. People around them are going to get involved. And we know that Somerset doesn't really have a lot of relations or family, but Gwyneth Paltrow's character, Tracy, she exists. And she tells Morgan Freeman's character that she's pregnant. And she hasn't told him yet, and they have this long talk about keeping the child. Is it right to bring a child up in this world? Which, again, kind of echoes who Morgan Freeman's character is. It has to be hard to make that decision. And I do actually love the way he said that, I still think I made the right choice, but sometimes I wish I made a different one. I don't know, there's just so many little lines in this that are just like, got me thinking. So then we start finding out this guy goes by John Doe, which is so strange and creepy, but yeah, he goes by John Doe, like what you would name an unknown body at the morgue, for example. And then they find the fourth victim. She's in like, is it a brothel maybe? I don't really know the correct terms for these things. And I didn't realize what happened because they didn't really show the scene too much, and I couldn't piece together because there was a guy crying saying, get it off me, and I was like, what the hell's going on? In the interview, we find out that the killer put a gun to the back of his head, made him put on a strap-on knife, and said, do it. do her. This really tore me up. I would love to sit here and say that if somebody had something to my head or were threatening me to do that, I would say just end me there. But that's so easy to say when you're not in that situation. So, And then you also have to wonder, like, would he have done it anyway if you didn't do it? I don't know if you really survived that. That is a horrible, scary thing to do to somebody, even though you are not really the person who did it, but you kind of are. I don't know, that's a way bigger discussion than I want to have on the channel, but it was like one victim, one murder victim in that sense, but I personally think there was 2 victims. That guy's life is ruined, And then the interview scene, we have the 2 detectives side by side in their interview rooms, looking drained and exhausted. Again, beautiful masterpiece art. You feel it. So the movie's starting to speed up pace for like finding different things. I also really like that they had the days of the week come up. I really enjoyed that. But we find Pride. This girl was told to either live with slashes all over her body or whatever he did to her, or end it, and gave her sleeping pills. And she chose not to live like that. And he chopped her nose off to spite her face. That whole saying, they say that in the movie. Yeah, everything is just getting too creepy, disturbing. But we're getting to the point where there's been so much that it almost feels like they were like, yeah, here we go again. Like everything is getting a little bit less impactful and monotonous in a weird way, which I think is a reality of going through this. Like it gets a lot less detailed. It gets a lot less focused. Because it keeps happening, you're getting used to it. Maybe I'm reading way too much into that, but that's how I felt. And then they're going into their office, wherever they're going, and this man covered in blood is walking, and I thought he was going to be like the guy in the Lust situation, another kind of victim, but no, it's John Doe. He has bandages all over his fingertips, he's covered in blood, and he's like, I want to talk to you. At this point, I was like, where the hell is this going? And so this John Doe was actually played by Kevin Spacey. I didn't even recognize him. I don't really watch his stuff. I don't know anything that he's in. I think he has a big TV show. He's just not someone on my list. Whatever, we're going to talk about his character. I knew this was going to be part of a game because there's no way he's going to get to 5, is he at 5 now? And not finish the rest. And I was really, really getting concerned because I think it was when they were going in here, someone said, your wife called. And we see Brad Pitt's character keep mentioning his wife. All the way up to the end, he just keeps bringing up his wife a little bit more and more. And I was like, it's going to happen. Something's going to happen. So then we get to this crazy deal. And there's some commentary here about like defense attorneys and the deals that people can get away with, pleading insanity. And honestly, I think it's a fair thing to showcase because the complexities of all that are really crazy. Because if he was to plead insanity, and like even in that moment, Mills was kind of like, oh, we're going to get him anyway. You're calling him insane. You know how easy it is for people to see something not normal to them and label it as insane, not just different. So if you can do that in your own mind, imagine a jury. Imagine whoever does that. I don't know. Is it a judge? I don't know how that works. So that's a fear. And he's saying there's 2 more bodies. Like if you want to find those 2 more bodies, you have to. And then they were like, if you try to go this route, if you don't do it, the public's gonna know that you didn't care about these 2 more victims. Which at this point, things are moving quicker and feel more monotonous. It would feel like that if they were just like, now we got our man, who cares about who they are? You should always care about who they are. I think it sucks that murderers can have leverage, but unfortunately that's the reality of it. And then we get this car ride. This long dialogue car ride. He's taking them out to like a deserted area kind of. I love this shot where there's the dialogue, the conversation, but they don't go past like the screen. So you know when you're in a cop car, there's kind of like a net or screen or like a cage. They keep that in there. So you are seeing him through it. And I really like that because some movies would just like keep skipping that boundary. And it's even when Gwyneth Paltrow's character Tracy and Morgan Freeman were speaking in the cafe at the end where he was like, I need to go. And his head went out and kind of covered her face. And then she peeked out and he moved back. Like it just made it feel more real. It no longer feels like you're watching a movie. It feels like you're watching a moment, like you're in a moment. I don't know. Whatever it is, it works on me, okay? And this is where this whole insanity thing comes. I wrote, it's more comfortable for you to label me insane. And I said, that's a bar. And when he said, I seem to remember breaking your face. Insane. Before we get to the ending, because that was crazy, I do want to talk about the apathy conversation for just a minute because I really love this. This is when Morgan Freeman is kind of talking about Mills' approach and how it's young, it's fresh. He doesn't know better yet. He hasn't learned it. He hasn't seen the darkness, which makes you feel every emotion, which you realize what you're doing is just on a clipboard to-do list task. You don't even know if it's going to see through. Like, why are you even doing it? And that's how you're made to feel about both of them. You're made to feel that Morgan Freeman's character is this deeper, more enlightened person who is doing the right thing. He wants to retire. He wants to have a more meaningful life. Because although his job can have meaning, there are so many barriers in the business of it or the politics of it that it's hard to feel like you're actually doing right. And then we have Mills, who is just like, boom, boom, boom. Everything is like, yeah, we're doing this. We're going to solve this crime. Yeah, I got this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's super emotional. He's not always the most professionally spoken. He doesn't take everything too seriously. He sometimes talks about the dead people in the room as if they're just like characters. Like, it's definitely off-putting, and I think it was meant to be. But in this moment, I just think it was a strong realization because, I mean, after this we have Morgan Freeman's character, he threw his metronome. It was just a realization that you being able to separate yourself and convince yourself that what you're doing is the right thing doesn't make you any better. You are not actually realizing or trying to be this way because it's better for the world. You're doing it because you can live with it. Because you can walk away and you can live with it when you have a chip on your shoulder. You can run away from everything and think you're doing better, but your values in this moment, your enlightenment in this moment is actually validation. And I just really like that we reflected that, and it really brought those two down to a more equal level for me, and I respected Mills' character way more. Okay, we gotta talk about the ending. Oh, we gotta talk about the ending. So, this was a tough one. I will say this watch is haunting. I knew something was gonna happen with Tracy. They left enough clues. They made you love her enough. They made her charming enough. You knew something bad was going to happen. They also made Morgan Freeman's character have enough of a relationship with her that he really cared for her. This is when they are there and he asks what time it is. And I was like, okay, he wants to know what time it is. I'm like, there's something going on. This guy, there's something going on. And this van comes, and this is just a hilarious moment where it's a delivery driver. He literally doesn't know what's going on. He's like, dude, this guy paid me $500. Like, just take this box. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then Morgan Freeman doesn't let him drive away. He's like, okay, the delivery driver is coming by foot. I'm sorry. It was so funny in that moment, even though that moment was such high tension. But that's what I like. Something I really like about reality that's shown in movies, because sometimes we think really serious moments, really serious stories. There's never a moment where something gets awkward, uncomfortable, weird, or even funny. But if you've ever been in a real life situation, you can be in terror. And there's always going to be something that happens that's like, what just happened? And you laugh, or it's silly, or it's stupid, or it's uncomfortable. So I like that this movie really honed into that. Like, there's so much of that throughout. So they thought that it was a bomb, the people up in the helicopters, and I didn't think it was a bomb. I thought it was honestly going to be like her finger, her wedding ring, one of the dogs. Like, I thought it was going to be something, and then he was going to use her location as leverage or reveal that he had her killed somewhere. I did not. Oh my God, the way this last scene was shot, where we have Morgan Freeman seeing blood on this box. John Doe is giving this whole monologue about wrath and envy and how he needs to be the final kill because he envies them and he wants Brad Pitt to act out of wrath. Oh my God. And then he opens the box and he's shocked, and I'm like, it has to be something really bad if he's acting like that. He starts saying, Tracy, police informants, I got all this information. I went over to see her. And then you're thinking about when she called him and you're like, oh my God. And then he says, I cut off her head. And her head's in the box. And says that she screamed for her and the baby. And he didn't know she was pregnant. So that's a horrible realization. I've seen the what's in the box meme. What's in the box? I've seen the meme. And I know, like, out of context, it's kind of funny how he says it. But in the moment, it is painful. It's painful. He knows. He knows what's in the box. We all know what's in the box. And that's why, like, too, they didn't need to show you. We all know what's in the box. He's trying to convince him not to shoot him because he can't shoot him because, one, it finishes everything he was trying to do. Two, you're killing somebody. It doesn't matter the situation. This is not defense. Like, you can't shoot him. But like the moment in the Lust situation, I was like, what would I do in this situation? I don't know if I wouldn't be able to do it, man. I don't know if I wouldn't be able to do it. That is agony. The movie ends kind of quietly. You know, he's going away in the car. Morgan Freeman's character is like, I will do whatever it takes to help him. And it ends. There's no, like, big moment, no justice, nothing fulfilling. Both detectives, one wanted to start a new life, one wanted to retire. They both came together in this. One thought it might be their big break, or maybe he just wanted to solve it. He just wanted to build a life for him and his wife and eventual family they didn't know about. Morgan Freeman's character just wanted to retire. He just wanted to get this one done. He just wanted to solve this, whatever his intentions may be. But the crime itself became so ingrained with the killer's admiration for them that they got dragged into it. And there was no happy ending. There's no good ending to this. I don't know how anybody goes on after this. It is just devastating. It's just devastating. Because he first transferred here, first I thought this guy might have already knew him or maybe knew Morgan Freeman's detective work and wanted to actually target them. But it seems like he just wanted to see who was smart enough, who could really follow what he was doing, who could start to learn, and that's when he started to admire them. And so it's like, okay, so being a good detective, doing what you're supposed to do, maybe even sometimes doing what you're not supposed to do, what did it really bring you? What did you get out of it? Ugh. It's heartbreaking, it's brilliant, it's beautiful, but it's haunting. Like, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I want to own it. Yeah, I'm definitely have to watch more of his films, because like I said, you don't need the dialogue to get all that. You really don't. No, the dialogue really adds to it, but you don't need it to get all that. You can get those emotions without it. So, let me know what you think. Let me know any details I missed. Let me know what other David Fincher films I should watch, and I will. Okay, bye.